Started recording. Okay, so just want to demonstrate a couple of things about for the final project. Uh, what can go into making like a handy hook tool, a helping tool, or something like that, a hands-free tool. So first, I'm just going to quickly sketch a reference for the tool itself. So I'm going to just do it as a sketch, exactly. So something along the lines of probably it would have some sort of a hand, some sort of like a finger hold or something like that. So I'll start somewhere over here. We'll start smack in the middle. That's fine. And get my ruler out. All right. Just how big is my finger to really get a good loop around to where it's not ridiculous, but also my finger doesn't get stuck. So yeah, somebody like 30 millimeters. Okay, that's fine. So from there, I could build outwards. I'm going to do another circle. I'd like to make that, sure, at least about 5 millimeters wide, but maybe 10 works. That's fine. We'll make it 40. From there, I can just draw out a line that will become my hook. We'll say it's 100, not 10. There you are. I'll use the offset tool to move that part down. Why is it? I want it to be -5. Go the other way. There we go. For some reason it was getting stuck. There we are. And I can also use the line tool. And back to when we first started with the first sketch, or with the first project. Let me zoom in here. You could also use the arc tool. So to do that, remember that you have to move away from your first point, then go back and press and hold the mouse key. As you drag away, it will create an arc, except for it didn't do it that time. Let me go back. Why isn't it doing it? What am I doing wrong here? Start on the line. There we go. Press and hold from there, and I can just create some sort of an arc. Remember, you can make this as curved as you like, anything like that. It's just making a direct arc off of that. The other way, if I wanted to make this more of a hook tool, start with another circle, and instead of a center point circle, use the drop down and go with a 2-point circle or so. With that, I can start right on the line here for one side of my circle and draw it out as large as I think I would like it to be. Let's say 30. There we are. Same thing. The 2-point circle sometimes works a little bit easier. So I'll delete those first lines out. Get rid of that. And basically what I'd want to do is draw some sort of a line as a trimming line. So we'll start from there and maybe just draw it out. I don't know. That seems reasonable-ish. Great. Use that line as a trimming section. So now I can cut that part of the circle out. Chop that. Super good. Use an offset tool to then move this part out. And you do want to make this thick enough to where it be strong. So let's say 5. 5 appears to be mildly overkill. 4 millimeters seems slightly better-ish. Fine. This could become a closed sketch here with either just a line, or we can do another 2-point circle. And I just use both ends here as my points. Super good. And I could do the same up here to make a rounded end. There we are. And I'll just trim some chunks out of here. So more or less, that's about what I'm looking for in a painfully simple hook tool. Should yours be more complex than this? Absolutely. But I'll finish this and use the extrude tool. Press E for extrude. And we will select different profile pieces. Let's say I want this to go in both directions. So symmetric. And I want it 5 millimeters, but as is, the measurement is half length because So that means it's now going 5 millimeters in either direction. I want it to be 5 millimeters total thickness. So use the whole length selector box in your extrude toolbox. Now it is measuring that away. Okay. So one thing I do want to quickly show you, there's a new feature added to Fusion recently in using the fillet tool. Before, we could do a fillet on, say, like the whole surface there. Let me cancel out that part. And press like 1, and that's going to put a fillet all the way around all the edges of that whole surface. However, what if I wanted this whole thing to actually be rounded? Well, before, you'd have to kind of estimate, and if this thing is 5 millimeters, so I'd probably have to do like a 2.5 instead, and then go back and do a fillet on the other surface, also 2.5, because it's 5 millimeters thick, 2.5 is half of 5. However, let me cancel that. At the top of the fillet toolbox here, there's now a drop down with an added section here that says full round fillet. This new option actually automatically will make your object rounded all the way around on the edges. So what you do is you select the surface here. Sometimes it goes a little screwy. We'll see if it does that because of this sharp point here. Might not let us. But let's see here. Between side 1, select side 2. All right, there we are. Should be working. Why isn't it working? Like I said, it might not let me because of this sharp angle here. Let's select the inside there. There we are. So selected just the inside, and in one stroke, it automatically makes the entire internal surface fully rounded. Now, problem is what I just said, a full fillet doesn't like this sharp point here. You see where my cursor is? It doesn't like right in there. So what I'm going to do, click OK. And, oh, actually, I didn't need to exit out of that. I can just go back, edit feature, and add a... Oh, nope, I did need to do that. Regular fillet. If I select that whole face, remember before, oops, not the tangency. I need the size. 2.5. I don't know if it'll let me do it now. Come on. That figures. Now it's not going to let me do it. Oh, no, it did add it. I just didn't see it. So it is going to have some problems here. Let's see if I can get it to do the full size. Well, that's just great. So it looks like it'll only work as far as 1 millimeter. Anyway, I just wanted to show you briefly the new tool that allows you to do full rounds. But of course, if you run into little corners like this, sometimes it has a lot of problems. So those are some options with the fillet tool. It's a neat option, but all we're doing is I just wanted to knock out a quick reference tool. So let me switch appearance views, press Shift in, and I'm just assigning colors to components. So now, very basic, very simple helping tool. So you got a little punch end, you got a little hook, little key ring, whatever have you. Okay. So what I wanted to show you is how might you make a second component for this project. One of the ways you could do that is by making like a holster or a sheath for this. So I'm going to use the format or the form tool to create that. But so far we've been using like actual full object forms and editing those down. One of the other ways you could do this is with the plane create tool. Now, the other one is also like Karina was talking about, how made the a lot of the cat parts, is you can do a sketch and extrude it basically the exact same way I'm going to show you. But tell you what, we'll do both. We'll do a plane. Now, a plane is what we used to make the handle for the spoon for the first demonstration. Now, what I'm going to do, though, is I select this, and I'm going to work on flat down, looking at the major surface. Want to create a plane. Oh, crap, not plane. I'm sorry. I got completely mixed up. The plane is what we used to make the spoon. I want to make a more non-uniform surface. So I want actually the face. Sorry about that. Got mixed up for a moment. Where each of these is made up of faces, the quad ball, the cylinder, even the plane, these are all made up of faces. I can create a object simply out of faces to begin with. So I'm going to work on just the flat plane here. My mode, I'll use simple. You can create multiple edges, multiple shapes, all of that. If you are referencing an object, you can actually have it mold to that object. But for right now, it won't really work with this because it's too small. So right now, I'm just going to start by drawing something roughly this shape. So start by clicking one point, and you have to make it with 4 separate vertices. There's one. Link these together by clicking on one of the vertices from before, drawing it out, building outward. There we are. Now, will this present a problem? Absolutely. We'll fix that in a bit. Just going to keep drawing outward. There we are. And I'll just draw straight across. Something to that effect. Great. Now, when I hit OK, it's going to round this thing out a little bit. Now, it doesn't quite fit all the way around the profile of my little helper tool. That's okay. I can still edit this. But I hit OK, and it kind of rounds a few things over. Leave some of the objects sharp. That's fine. Now I can go to my edit form, and now I can play around with points here. Let's see here. We'll move this vertice out a little bit, just so that it covers. Oh, what did I grab? I think I grabbed the wrong tool there. I want that vertice. There we go. We'll have to round out a little bit. These I can move inward a bit. Not really going to be able to mess with that too much right now. That's okay. But if I want, I can also come in and add sections, as in hit OK. I can add an edge if I want. Double click that whole thing, and I'll move the line over to halfway. And now you see this green line here. I can now split this up a little bit, and now I have more vertices to play with. Great. Now, right now, I'm just keeping it flat. The only reason I do this is if I then wanted to go and edit this form some more, select that point, and I just want to drag that out a little bit. I'll do the same for right there. Maybe make this kind of a little bit more sweeping, that sort. Go back to the top view, remove that one a little bit. Oops, I selected the wrong thing. What do I keep doing here? Just want that point. There we go. Little bubblegum kind of thing going. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I can now extrude this face. The extrude tool does not work quite the same way as it has been working for when we've been working with sketches so far. What happens when I select this extrude tool, I want all of these faces. So I'll go ahead and select everything. So just from the left selection box, select everything here. I want all of them, not that. Now I can add a thickness to it. How tall is my actual object? About to there. But look at what's actually happening. It's curving the whole thing. So this is a way you could create curved surfaces. Now, if I want, I could click this checkbox here, and it will extrude sharp, just like the regular extrusion tool does. But if I want this to be more rounded, there we are. And what this will allow me to do is create more of like a open surface here. Now, right now, if I orbit underneath, you can see it is just an open surface. It is not a solid form like we've been working with. So this is already like half of a sphere or something like that. So this is how you could start by already making half of a thing, pardon me, and then manipulating it further. So from there, yeah, that works for me. I'm gonna click OK. Now I could go through, and if I want this to, pardon, and I want this to be doubled, so at some point what I will do is mirror this, but right now I don't need to do that. What I would use that for is I would mirror duplicate. So far, we've just been using mirror internal, which would let me split up a object, and whatever I do to one side of it, it'll do to the other. Mirror duplicate will make a copy of that object across a line or plane. And what I can do is select this object, and I can use the construction plane as my plane to mirror, and now it makes this on opposite sides. And my symmetry, if I zoom in here, you can see my symmetry is across that line. So select OK. Great. Now, did I have to make the other side of it first? Not at all. But I did, so there we are. Now what I can do is I can go in, and I want to select some faces. Make sure you actually select the faces. Now I can delete them. Now I have a thing that I can have an open end to play with. Now, problem here would, of course, be that if I look from the top, this has a hook here. Well, it physically would not be able to move past this section here. So what I might do then is I could either manipulate this section outward, or just delete those too. I can make this kind of like an open-ended sheath. So now it has more of this form here. So this would just be a simple way of working it. Now what I could do is click OK, or I'm sorry, I want to thicken this first. I need to actually add dimension to this, because right now this form is only a surface thickness. There's no actual dimension to it. Select the whole object and I'll make it like 2. Now this is where, again, you could select either thickness type sharp, soft would make it rounded, or no edge would be there. It's going to make the inside and outside. And then if you wanted to manipulate that further, you could do that. So I'm going to use soft edge. Direction normal, that's fine. 2 millimeter thickness. Boop. And now it has actual thickness, which might be a bit overkill, but there we are. I'll finish the form for now. And what I should have done is created this as a separate component, and I forgot to do so first. So what I'm going to do, right click, create components for bodies, and that just threw the tool into a separate component. Now, first thing, did I make this way too large? Absolutely. So what I can do is go back, edit sketch, and I can thicken that in a different way. Let's say that way. Let's see. Now it's going to want to thicken it that way. That's not right at all. There we go. So far it was 2. Why don't I go inward so it gets closer to my object? And we'll go to -4. That seems close-ish. We'll see how that works. There we go. So now it's a little bit thicker. Finish form, let it recalculate. There we are. So now the sheath is a little bit thicker. It's a little bit more tightly formed to the tool. Last thing I want to do with this, and again, this is a very bare bones version of this option for this assignment, is I want it to have a joint. Now, one of the reasons why I recommend making your parts all along one of the major axes, this right now is along the red axis, the x-axis, or you could do it along the y-axis. That's fine. Don't put it in here, rotate it or such, because what will happen when I go to attach a joint, what I want is I want my tool here to move. So I want to select the center there. So select the or I'm going to mouse over the surface here, because if I just try to mouse here in the center, it won't let me. Mouse over the ring surface, press and hold Control or Command on Mac. Select there. That is smack in the middle, smack between the surfaces. Now, the problem with a edited form is the joint tool works off of angular surfaces. What I mean by that is, even though, let me hide the sheath here, even though the tool here is rounded in the center, it's still based off of a angular creation. It's an extruded creation, extruded body. The sheath, however, is rounded through and through. So the difficult thing about this is you have to just find a spot to work from. Now, at first, it's going to throw it off kilter, and that's okay. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to find somewhere that works. Let's see. Maybe if I first go to there and then rotate. Oop, just threw it all off. Yeah, we'll snap along the major axis. That's fine. Select there. Did it do it? There we are. Why is it? Okay. Motion. Nope, definitely don't want revolute. I want this to become a slider. Now, what I'm going to do is I want this to actually slide in and out of the sheath to animate. So I will swap that to the x-axis. Now it goes that way. Now the problem is, look what it did, is it reversed my tool. So this is where you have to start kind of playing around with things. First off, I can flip the tool over with this flip command. Hopefully that'll work. Did it work? It in fact did not. So let's see here. It should be letting me flip this whole thing out, and instead it is very not. What just happened? I was hoping it was going to let me flip that one of the other axes. Well, poop. Let me just cancel that and go back. All right. Joint again. First one, right where I wanted it to be. Smack in the middle there. Mouse over the inside. Press and hold Control. Select in the center. Second point, I'm just going to have to pick something along the line. Now I'm going to try and select right on the x-axis here. And there we are. So like I said, it's definitely going to do some weird things. Let me pre-select the slider. And I want that slider in the x-axis. I don't know why it's inverting it, but that's something we can fix afterwards. All right, so I'm going to hit OK. And that's there. So it's already doing some weird things. So this is where you're going to have to go into the joint itself, expand the joint out, and go to Edit Joint. All right. So it's sliding that way. There we are. Oh, let's see here. We have the minimum. We have the maximum. We can set those. You can try flipping this, animating it. That's going the opposite way. Okay, well, that is definitely problematic. So I guess what we're going to have to do is move the joint manually. So right-click on the joint command, and let's go to edit the joint. So what we're going to have to do here is first I want to rotate, or sorry, first I want to just slide this back in position. All right, so that's there. There we go. Now the flip is working properly. So when I click the flip, or when I selected the flip tool, flip option here in the toolbox, it snapped it back where it's supposed to be. Sometimes joints do weird things simply because you're trying to make it do something that it isn't really intended for doing, but you can still tweak it. So this is where doing the joint alignment selections here, that's what will allow you to put it back where it's supposed to be. Now, the other thing is, all right, I moved it left and right about where it's supposed to be, but now I need to move it about back in the center. So I'll just use the sliders, try to get it to be about where I want it to be. Rotate up and have a look-see. That's about right. Okay. Hit the home button. Don't forget, you want to ground one of the items. In this case, I'm going to ground the, let's see, go back to the joint and animate this, what is actually moving. All right. So what we're doing right now is we're moving the key in and out. Okay, that's fine. So what I want to do is I want to select my body, which in this case, I'll go ahead and rename the body 2 here into sheath. I want to ground this. So if I right click and let's see, it's not letting me ground that. So you have to ground by component. So what you're going to have to do then is I'm just going to pull this out into its own component also. Should have done that right from the get-go. Right click, create component from body. There we are. Now it's going to make a new one. So I'm just going to hide the old one. That's fine. Now the sheath, I can right click on the actual component itself. Now the option to ground is there. That locks the sheath in virtual space. Now, when I go to select the tool and click and drag it, now it'll move as it's supposed to. I don't want to capture the new position. I want to revert. There we are. So this is something you could definitely add to. Maybe on top of one of these, you add like a belt clip or something like that on the sheath. So the whole thing could then just snap onto your pocket or belt, like I just said. So that's a really simple way of working and going through a couple of the problems I have run into in using the Form Edit tool to create a rounded sheath here. So before we go any further, let me make sure to save, as I should have done right from the beginning. And example, hands-free tool. Okay. So the other option here, let me hide that. And I'm going to start a new component this time. And we'll just do, we'll say sheath 2. Okay. So what I want to do, create a form here, and I want to start this by a sketch. So click OK. And with this, I'll do something similar. I'm just going to use the fit point spline. We'll just do that, which should have been straight. Something like this. Sort of kind of similar. Hit OK. I want to mess with these control points, these handlebars. Drag this around a little bit. Shrink the control points, or handlebars rather. That one is way off. Make that a bit larger, a little less screwy. Like anything before, just play around with it. And I'm going to use a straight line to then finish that out. Let me move this other point over to there, locks it in place. Now it's a solid form. Great. Finish sketch. Now I can do the same that we did before, and I can use the extrude tool here and extrude a surface. And I want uniform. There we are. Can't see behind my camera here. New body. Contain crease edge. No. Front faces. Let's add to the faces. There we are. Angle. direction. Just looking at different options here. So play around with this stuff. I actually want that to be fitting to the curvature. There we are. So this is the same problem I ran into before. It's extruding just the outline, and it's not doing it exactly as I intended. Why? I'm not certain. So how to fix that, what I could do is I can actually cap this. And what I mean by that is modify, and there is a, sorry, itchy. There is a fill hole. So down here, it's a way to top this off. Now, we talked about this when we were cutting holes in the duck. That sounds really creepy. When we were cutting holes in the rubber duck example, and how you can then patch it back up. So this would be a way to just close this off. So I want the whole edge here. Double click this edge, and it's going to close that whole top. Now, a few options here. First, you can click the maintain creased edges. So that would make it sharp if you want. I don't want that. But you also have different options for how to close it off. Now, it's kind of an oddball shape, so you're going to be getting some weird stuff here. You do collapse, that closes that stuff in. Now, I'm not certain why I'm getting this vertice point. I think it's just how this works is it tries to find the average center point and go from there. So basically just play around with the options here. One of the things I should not have done is added that additional line. What I should have done is just left that as a single extrusion point. So what I'll do, I'm going to correct this. I'm going to go ahead and Control Z, go back, just delete that back out. We'll extrude again. My whole surface, go up, what was it? 5, something like that. Drag that up. Sure, 5. Wow, that is going totally nanners. I am not sure why it's doing it this way. Ah, there we are. Didn't have enough faces. So sometimes, apparently, if it doesn't have enough faces, it's not actually going to match your original sketch curvature. There we are. So the one thing that I did add before is I added front faces. Shouldn't have done that. I'm going to leave it as 1. Just 1 solid front face. Okay. Now I'm going to go through, modify, fill hole, double click that top edge. Now it merged it much more effectively. So this is a different way of working. You're going to find, depending on the complexity of your sketch, is it's going to affect the overall form. And play around with these different options, the reduce star, fill star, collapse, and see what works best for your profile. One is not always going to work better for the other. So this is just one way of working. From here, click OK. Now I can still go and modify this. So I can edit the form. I can pull faces around or edges, drag that down, tweak this, rotate that a little bit, just playing with the overall form. Oops, didn't mean to scale that. I meant to grab that. There we are. But this is still creating a hollow half shell. If I want to smooth this out a little bit, remember I can like insert edges here. This would allow me to just chop up the faces a little bit more. Add one there, or maybe make that a double over there. Sure, the 0.5, that's fine. That's going to definitely make some changes to the form. But it's a way to create sharper edges if you want, merged in with a rounded object. So there's going to be options. And like I said, with this, pardon me, experiment, because what we're asking it to do in making shapes like this is not the direct intended use for stuff like this. This program is really meant to work a little more architecturally, but the form space definitely is more sculptural. So this is how you can just kind of start to manipulate this. So we can do the same things we did before, in that now I can do a, oops, I didn't mean to do internal. I want to go to mirror symmetry, but duplicate, and I can select this whole side. And my mirror plane is the original origin plane. Select there, makes my double-sided doohickey here, as we're getting to be. Click OK. Now I can go through and delete some of these faces to create my, or recreate my sheath here. Okay, delete. See what that does. That did some weird stuff. So maybe I shouldn't do all of that. I think what I'm going to need to do is actually create another edge here. So insert edge, double click that line there, and just going to make some more points. Click OK. That's going to continue to mess with this, because like I said, this is really working off of a fit point spline kind of geometry. So clearly this is just going completely off the rails. So it looks like how I'm working this and deleting faces, it is not going to get me where I want to go. So this is not the right set of tools to use for this part. Instead, clearly what we should be using there is the first way of working. So I'm going to just abandon this. It's an option for what I'm trying to do with it. It's not a good option. So I'm just going to finish that form, hide that utter failure, and reactivate the main overhead here. And unhide the first sheath I did. And there we go. So we're going to just use that one. I don't at all like where the other one was going, but I did want to show you a different way of working, but for what I'm trying to do, it's not with the right case at all. But this is a very basic way of building out a handy tool here. Again, it has the joint built into it where it will slide back and forth. And there you are. So that's a very basic handy tool.